then from a fan base perspective, can you just go over the excitement that the fans have this season with Caitlin coming back? And again, I mentioned the Fever exceeding some expectations there. Everybody coming back, presumably full strength. It must be an exciting time to be a Fever fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think there's anything that better epitomizes that than the fact that all 44 games were put on national TV. Like, that just speaks to the demand and the ratings that Caitlin, led by Caitlin, they are able to get. She is the needle. That's what I dub her. She is the needle. Whatever she is doing, people are following, watching, listening. Doesn't matter what it is. So, yeah, I think so many people, everybody is excited to see Caitlin back on the court and doing what she loves. I think some of the fan base is a little concerned about the front court. Do they have enough size? They like the fact that they brought back a lot of the key pieces, but I think they're cautiously optimistic about what this group will look like, given in some areas its size
Hi
limitations.
everyone, Tim Kitzer with you, the voice of NBA Jam. From top journalists and authors to rising influencers and insiders, Hoopsology brings you the voices driving basketball forward. With elite guests and sharp analysis, Matt, Justin, and Alan keep you plugged into everything hoops. From downtown, boom shakalaka.
And we previewed the Indiana Fever earlier in a previous episode, but I wanted to focus with you on Caitlin Clark. Just her journey battling adversity last season, only played about 13 regular season games, fighting a multitude of injuries. And I just want to get your analysis on her comeback to a point to where a lot of, betting sites, Las Vegas has her, battling as the MVP favorite. So let's just start with just her injuries last season and then, her off season. What was your opinion and what did you gather in terms of her mindset going through, correct me if I'm wrong, really a lot of adversity for the first time of her career from an injury standpoint? What was that like for her in terms of when she got injured and then during, the rest of the WNBA season and then the off season in terms of recovery?
Yeah, it was terribly difficult because it was uncharted territory for her. She had never really dealt with anything even minor, I think, until going back to like high school. So not missing anything in college and then nothing that first year. And then the second year, high expectations, high hopes, new coaching staff, a few more pieces to surround her with, and it just never got off the ground. I think her first injury, I remember, was a leg injury in the first week of camp. And then she was held out in that preseason game. And then you had that preseason game in Iowa. There's no way you're keeping her out of that one, right? And so, but in hindsight, it probably was not the best thing for her. But you're not going to tell any of them, including myself, if I was playing. I'm not sitting that one out. Nonetheless, it was just one thing after another, and she was, again, never able to get off the ground and just did countless rehab things to try to be out there, from hyperbaric chambers to physiotherapy to living in the training room, basically, with Maria, the head athletic trainer over there. And so it was just an extremely difficult, trying, exhausting year for her. On top of that, you had the noise from the outside, especially those saying, hey, she doesn't even want to be out there. She doesn't want to play. The team already knows she was trying to get back. There's nothing more that she wanted to do was to be out there and at least contribute in some way. It's so isolating. It is so lonely what she experienced this past year. Of course she wanted to be back. And so I laughed at that theory. But nonetheless, even without her, this team was able to have some success as they lost like 6 different players due to injury. But she had a couple more months after the season to get it right, be fully healthy, had a very good first training camp session at Duke with Team USA, then another one heading into the World Cup qualifying where she was MVP of the tournament and started one game. So she's 100%. She's back to being herself. She's, I think, being a little bit determined, specific, looking out for herself just in terms of her workload and what she's doing and how much stress she's putting on her body. But she's roaring to go. She's giddy, Justin.
No, it seems like she's a little bit more carefree. Am I wrong in that? Just in terms, I believe there was a media event with some Fever reporters about her wanting to, I don't know if you were there or not, but her wanting to take a picture with with the reporters. Like, it just seems like her attitude is a lot different. What do you attribute that to in terms of just kind of when she first entered the league to now? Is it just more maturity? We're seeing more of her personality?
I think she broke, she not broke down. She broke her facade, or what? Maybe that's not the best way to put it. She she speaks in front of the camera and just so smooth and so just veteran-like. She speaks like Peyton Manning. Like, just, exactly, she's true professional. What I'm getting at there is I think that was her, and this is the compliment, to be clear. That was her fun, unserious self come out that behind closed doors everybody talks about. She's the one doing pranks in the locker room. She's the one making fun of her teammates in a good way and having fun with everything. And so I think she just got tired. Guys, let's stop talking about a leg sleeve. Let's stop talking about me playing off the ball. It's not that deep. If I wear a wristband, are you going to ask me about that? Are you asking my teammates about I think she just sometimes, I love the fact that she take ownership of a crazy theory out there and was just like, it's not that deep. What else do you got for me? And so I don't think it's kind of any evolution or anything. I think that was just Caitlin truly being herself and being the 24-year-old that she is.
What have been your impressions of her? You mentioned Team USA, just the preseason games, anything that you observe just in training camp that fans might see differently coming this season, a new wrinkle to her game, or even her confidence on the court. Is there anything that kind of stands out that might be something new from Caitlin that we might see this season?
I think the something new is having a full bill of health, knock on wood. Like that's really all we specifically want to see. Now, I mean, there might be small wrinkles. I think how she finishes in the paint, that was one of the biggest things that she had worked on entering this past season, which we obviously never really saw come to fruition because in her rookie season, she had to shoot over a lot of people. She had to absorb and try to get around and avoid physical contact. I think she's just getting smarter, wiser, and has a better understanding of the league from that standpoint. Her shooting, we know what all that is, her free throw shooting, etc. And then I think the two-man game, she's going to get even better because she's been on the wavelength with Aliyah Boston now entering year 3. Very quickly, we saw her and Monique Billings pick that up, and I think that's a big reason why they signed her. And I think Billings has had the right attitude in all this and how to approach. And, there was a post, I think, on social media about setting a screen for Caitlin. She said, hey, got to get my shooter open. It's like, yeah, that's exactly the mentality. And guess what? You're going to get repaved 10 times over, right? On the times when 2 defenders shell out to try to trap her, you're going to be the one that benefits and is wide open. So I think there are small wrinkles, I do, but realistically, I think it's mostly her health. I do take notice the fact nobody's mentioned, her size. Remember last year this time, the conversation was she's put on strength. Her arms look bigger. Her legs look bigger. There hasn't been any of that right now. Maybe something, maybe nothing, but she looks sharp out there. And is just having fun. And I think the biggest thing, Justin, in all this, and this is what really Stephanie White's been harping on the last couple months, is she's found her joy again. She's having fun out there. And that probably is reflective in that answer that you saw the other day with us. That's her being fun, joyful, and feeling like herself again, because last year she was not whole.
No, yeah, that was very apparent. I'm glad she's healthy. You mentioned Aliyah Boston. What is their relationship like with that duo? I think, especially in the W, there's a lot more of like these, the lack of a better term, NBA Jam duos that we see from a lot of teams. What is their chemistry and their dynamic on the court and off the court that you have observed?
Yeah, from what we see and I hear about, I think it's just fantastic. Those two get along so well together, and either one could clearly be super selfish in how they approach things or what they say. It's none of that. They're team players. Same way with Kelsey Mitchell. They are understanding more than ever of each other, their roles, and how they can get it done as a group here. If Kelsey's not shooting well, Caitlin can step in. If Aliyah's just not feeling it, maybe it's Kelsey's night to go off or whatever. I think that's the thing here is the Fever basically have a big 3. And then they bolstered that starting lineup. And who knows in the long term who will start on that third guard spot. It could be Lexi Hall. It could be Sophie Cunningham. Right now I think it's Cunningham by default because Lexi Hall's not really been able to be a full participant in camp due to that hamstring strain. But specifically with Aliyah, I think it's fantastic. They understand each other, and there's nothing better, I think, for them. Take that 5-second moment that they have before every game where Aliyah's on the bench, Caitlin comes over, puts her arm around her, and has that routine saying that she always says. It's something like you're going to be great because you are great. And then they go off and have the team intros. I think that epitomizes those two's relationship and how they are in this together. Very few have experienced what they have being number 1 picks coming to a franchise that had all these losses, and they've been tasked with turning it around, and they have in short order.
No, that's totally true. What specific areas of Caitlin Clark's game does she need to improve upon, do you think, to make that next step? Because I've been talking to other journalists, and I've seen some websites, especially in Vegas, in terms of MVP odds. She's right at the top, and considering the season that she had previously, it really surprised me compared to your elder players within the W's. So, what kind of areas do you see that she needs to really focus on in order to capture that MVP that a lot of people think that, especially in Vegas, that she might be somewhat the favorite to win this season?
Thing I will say about the odds, I've learned this years ago with the Lakers. Watch every single year because there's so many Laker fans, and they're going to bet with their heart. The Lakers are probably always way up there in odds to win it all, no matter who's there. Same thing with Caitlin. How many people don't know the rest of the league and go, oh, my girl's going to win it. I can't wait for Caitlin to win MVP. And that is solely what they are voting. So I think that is a guide, but you'll have to understand, I'd be surprised if she doesn't have top 5 MVP odds her entire career. That's at the level she's with. Same thing probably for a LeBron James, although now year 21 or whatever it is, he's probably top 10. Sure. To your latter point, I think it starts with ball handling. She's going to get pressured the entire court, and then comes the decision-making from there. I think there's several areas that she could clean up the passes. Maybe sometimes she gambles a little bit too much, although I accept a lot of that because that's where the special happens. Her best attribute is her passing and is her court vision, how she can anticipate others. I loved it the other night during a preseason game. It was a stoppage. I think there was free throws at the other end. She grabbed the ball and threw it down the court like 70 feet, no big deal, as if she was a quarterback. She loves that. Again, that's part of her unserious self, too, that I enjoy. But I think it's the decision-making that will come when the inevitable pressure arrives. Is she forcing it? Is she making the right pass? And I think early on, if she could be a little bit more cautious with it, as she gets her groove again and gets on the wavelength, especially with the new players. So that's where I would start. And then I'm not worried about shooting or taking the right shots or anything like that. My second thing would be step it up a little bit on the defensive end. It's obviously not her strong suit. It's not what she focuses on. In fact, like another star of hers, her idol, LeBron, it's often where she'll try to sneak in some rest. And so there needs to be levels to that with the communication, with her staying in front of her man and making it at least difficult and allowing help side to get over things like that. So I would lean on those two things, decision-making and improved defense.
You mentioned just her affinity for LeBron, and he's known to be very conditioned. And with Caitlin, when she first got into the league, she just had us a brutal schedule, not that much rest between like her college career and going into her rookie year. How has she adjusted in terms of just the grind of the WNBA season? You mentioned that she's fully healthy, but in a season, things can happen. Has she put any considerations and just, withstanding her body to what's going to be a physical season, especially she's going to have a huge target on her back. The Fever, exceeding expectations last season. I'm sure they're going to be one of the most targeted teams in the leagues. What has she done? What has the team done to be prepared more from a physical level from injury?
Yeah, I think more than anything, it's having the resources around her, and then it's also having the best understanding of what the grind is, therefore you can adapt to it. I talked about the hyperbaric chamber she did religiously. It was sad at one point when she was in there and Tyrese Halliburton was also getting a session in with his Achilles. It's like, if that doesn't speak to what Indiana basketball has been like for the last 10 months, I don't know what does, when the two faces of the teams are doing whatever they can to get completely healthy. So I think that's the biggest thing. I'm not expecting like a stylistic change in how she plays or anything. I think it's just the wisdom that comes from the years of being in the league. And the Fever upgraded the athletic training staff. They provided more resources, a mental health coach, nutritionist, all those different things that help fully encompass and support all these players, not just Caitlin. And so I think she's fully taking advantage of that.
And from a fan base perspective, can you just go over the excitement that the fans have this season with Caitlin coming back? And again, I mentioned the Fever exceeding some expectations there. Everybody, coming back, presumably full strength. It must be an exciting time to be a Fever fan.
Yeah, absolutely. And I don't think there's anything that better epitomizes that than the fact that all 44 games were put on national TV. Like, that just speaks to the demand and the ratings that Caitlin, led by Caitlin, they are able to get. She is the needle. That's what I dub her. She is the needle. Whatever she is doing, people are following, watching, listening. Doesn't matter what it is. So, yeah, I think so many people, everybody is excited to see Caitlin back on the court and doing what she loves. I think some of the fan base is a little concerned about the front court. Do they have enough size? They like the fact that they brought back a lot of the key pieces, but I think they're cautiously optimistic about what this group will look like, given in some areas its size limitations.
And from just your best predictions, it's kind of hard to say, but to your best analysis, looking at the schedule during the first half before the All-Star break starts, is there anything that concerns you in terms of maybe like a crazy road trip, or maybe where they're facing a lot of tough teams all at once? Is there anything that the Fever should look out for during the early part of the season from a schedule perspective?
It's funny, Justin. They released that schedule in the middle of negotiations. I wrote the story. Honestly, haven't looked back at it since then, except I know the first 2 weeks, it's 5 of 6 games at home. So that's advantageous right there. I think they really need to maximize this start of the schedule. But after that, I mean, that was I'm sorry, I actually forget what it looks like mostly after that. Just because there's been so many it was remarkable to me how quickly we went from new CBA to draft, free agency.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And a week later, everybody had to move here. I feel bad for these rookies in particular because already it's a narrow period, but it was the rookies and now free agents that truly had to uproot their life and move wherever they went. And I think the biggest thing that I'm most interested in is see how so many of these different teams evolve and look. Because right now, we don't even know, the rosters aren't even set yet. They have another day as we're recording here to finalize that. I am so interested because it's not my money. It's not my number one thing in the CBA. To me, I'm so fascinated by these player development roles, and it was probably informed both by the number of players that were drafted early and cut, and also what the Fever went through last season, where they had to bring in 4, 5, and 6 players, including a couple players overseas, just to fill out a roster, and how much more advantageous and helpful we want these games to be competitive. And so if they're having to bring in a player the day before in an emergency hardship exception, that's not good for anybody, especially when these games are on national TV. So I love the fact there is these player development spots. Not only are those players getting paid, but they're within the system from the very jump. So that's probably the number one thing from the CBA. I'm looking forward to seeing how it pans out.
And final question for you, for Caitlin. What is her barometers of success? I mean, obviously every player in the highest level wants to win a championship, but what is she looking for in terms of her own physical development that would be considered a success besides her staying healthy? What do you think is kind of what she's looking at? Is she a big stat person in terms of, okay, I got to be top in assists, top in, free throw percentage, or she's just looking to contribute to helping her team win by any means necessary? She scores 5 points, gets 4 assists, but they win, so be it. She doesn't care. So what is kind of her mindset in terms of success this season, you think?
Yeah, I think the number one thing she'll tell you is she's a winner, and she wants to win. And I think she felt that last year when not only were they losing some, but she had no impact on the outcome. And so that changes obviously this year with her being out here. I don't think she's one that would necessarily write down I must average 21 points, make 4 threes. I doubt that. I would guess the free throw percentage would be 90% or better. I would imagine her writing that down. I would imagine her expecting All-Star, expecting a WNBA, all WNBA type first team. I think that would be a no-brainer. So much of it is voting that you don't have say or anything impact. But I think then after that, she would say, I want to impact my teammates and make them better. I know I'm going to get my numbers. I know I'm going to shoot it well. But if I'm elevating my teammates, both with pure numbers and assists, but also setting them up for success, it means winning, and therefore my numbers are going to take care of themselves.
Makes sense. Scott, thank you very much for the time. Truly appreciate it. Can you let our audience know where they can find yourself on social media, where they can find the Fieldhouse Files, and then anything else you want our audience to be aware of as well?
Yeah, so follow along at fieldhousefiles.com, my YouTube channel, where I'm posting daily updates from there, as well as interviews. And this past year, I launched the Fever Files podcast, where I'm both having a podcast, but also redistributing a lot of that sound that I think a lot of people miss out on. So it's another outlet. If people just want to be locked into Caitlin and the Fever, those would be good options. And I welcome everybody I invite everybody to join me there.
Awesome. Scott, thank you very much for the time. Good luck this season. I'm sure it's going to be an awesome ride. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Justin.